problem with confidence. There is a serious problem with people's confidence in going back to the cinema, people's security, feelings of safety. And especially when you've got one of the biggest markets, the United States, being, pummeled by the deaths with COVID and coronavirus. And you're seeing that on screen and on the news every day with that information. It's very difficult for people to, how do I say it, to feel secure going back to the theater, because a lot of people don't go to the theater by themselves. They go with family, and then they're living with family. So the idea being is that, look, even if you're going to be okay by going to the theater, you might go and pick up the COVID, take it back to your household, and then everybody's screwed. Or you might take the household to the cinema and everybody gets COVID there. So it's one of those things that I think it's very important for people to be aware of and to think about, that this might be it. Will people ever go back? Because there is a certain inherent laziness that we have as audiences, where if you do have the opportunity to watch films at home, if you do have the opportunity to use your own sound system, use your own entertainment system, there's a lot of people who don't really care about the big screen experience as much as people like myself. And that's just facts, and that, for me, is probably going to be the most damaging, long-lasting effect that we're going to see about what's going on, is that we're not, people who are now going to get used to the experience of watching films in their house, watching films at home, will invariably not return to the theater. When COVID is back under control, when there's a vaccination that some people will take, obviously I'm not, not me, but and a lot of folks are like, nah, man, we're not going to do that. But, when we get into a situation where that is the move, then we're going to have, a scenario where people are going to have to make a decision. Now, look, I'm a cinema guy, that's the bottom line for me, so as soon as cinemas are back in the game, I'm back in the game. It's point blank period for me. That's as far as the Merc is concerned. But I do actually understand there's a lot of guys who the cinematic experience isn't that big a deal. And especially when you're looking at the new generation who are like the smartphone guys, the TikTok guys, the Instagram guys, like the people who grew up with that. So we're talking about people who are under 16. Under 20 even. Let's even go like that high. Let's say people who are under 20. Sorry guys, there's a helicopter here. They're looking for me. They're trying to find me. The choppers. The chopper. Overhead. Yeah. All right, let's wait for that helicopter to get out of here. All right, cool. All right, so there are guys who grew up with social media as part of their lives from the beginning. Like people like me, I'm an old type dude. So I remember videotapes well. Like that was a complete era in my life, Betamax and VHS. So I fully was operational during that era, the era pre-email when you had to write letters. I remember all that. So I'm one of those guys at the age where I actually have crossed over multiple scenarios, multiple experiences of media and entertainment, so that I do have an appreciation for the value of various things. I do have an appreciation for the value of various, modes of communication, modes of entertainment. I think that there's a generation that we have now who don't have that, So therefore, I think for them, my goodness, this is almost like, I don't want to say it's like a godsend for them, in the sense of, they were really hoping that this was going to happen. But for them, the impact of not having cinematic releases isn't that big. It just isn't that big a deal. Not having it. It's something that they've pretty much very quickly adapted to. And when you have a scenario now whereby studios and so forth are actually focusing their release models on getting movies and cinema directly broadcast to your screens at home in tandem with the theatrical releases for now. I mean, I'm saying for now because I actually feel like that's going to go out the window. I mean, this is just to sort of keep things ticking along. And it's, you know, when you're sort of hedging your bets. So this is sort of hedging your bets to say that, you know what, let's see how things go. We're going to sort of keep a little string attached to the theatrical situation just in case people go back. Because let's be real, like the theatrical releases opening weekend is a really big help for mediocre films. When a film is trash, it's a great help, you know, to be able to get a big box office by doing your marketing and promotion and getting the movie out where nobody really knows whether the movie's any good or not, or people have been built up, you know, the excitement has been built up to a level whereby, you know what, let's just get out and watch this movie this weekend because we're fans. You know, that first couple of batches, you know, the first couple of weeks, people realize the movie's trash and then they tell everybody and then nobody goes back. But by that point, you've already made your dough. That whole window now is jeopardized by this because if it's now about people willing to pay $30 to watch a movie at home, which can easily be bootlegged, because we're going to talk about the bootlegging thing later. Let's talk about the bootlegging thing a little bit later. But the bottom line is this, right? When you have a situation where you have to make a decision at home whether you're going to pay $30 to watch a film, that film better be something you really want to see. Because the ease with which you can just go and bootleg it or just go to somebody else's house and watch it on their dime, where you all chip in and just sit in his house to watch the thing, is high. So you've almost got like the pay-per-view effect, you know, the HBO pay-per-view effect, where, you know, one person buys the fight and then everybody else chips in and goes to that person's house to watch the fight. That's basically what you have, you know. So the whole psychology has to change now because you're like, you know what, you actually really have to give people what they want now. Because the whole thing about marketing it for people to go out on the opening weekend to watch something is going to die. Because all it takes now is like one person in a group of friends to go to buy this thing on his TV. People go and watch that movie and say, this movie's rubbish, man. This movie's trash. Like, you know, that's the way it's going to start going. However, if the movie's top notch and somebody's watching it, I mean, guys are going to be paid. They're going to pay. They're going to pay. Like for me, you know, am I going to, so for example, like, let's say, let me see what movie am I even really looking forward to watching. I mean, there really isn't anything anymore, you know. Let's say, I don't know, Snides was making Batman, like I've already talked about the whole Batman thing that I liked about Snides' version of Batman, right? You know, I was talking about that a lot. Like, you know that Talkback has said a lot about Snides over the years, but I've always said that this guy's pulled out some crazy things, you know, from time to time. And one of those crazy things, 100%, is his version of Batman that was in, what do they call it? Batman v Superman and Justice League, the movie version of Justice League anyway. So if I heard that Snides was bringing out a movie, which we know is now probably going to be on HBO Max, but let's say we knew that Snides was bringing out a Batman movie with Affleck and all that sort of stuff, man, I'm going to pay for that movie. Because that Batman, and I don't care what anybody says, is the Batman I've been trying to watch. That's the Batman I've been trying to watch. I mean, yes, there is the detective thing. True. But when it comes just to the raw action and energy involved, I didn't really like the fact that he was killing willy-nilly, though. I mean, that was a bit much for me. But, you know, because I was like, come on, man, you can't just be killing guys like this, Batman. I mean, come on, man. However, the dynamism, the energy, the darkness, the intensity, the intimidation, the suit, the best Batman suit that's ever been made on film. Like, I don't understand why. You see, there are people who praise Snides, right? But it's almost like for the wrong things, you know? Like, How does anybody see that and you claim to be a Batman guy, you claim to be a comic book guy, and you're not flipping out and you're not saying that, you're not petitioning for that film to get made? I mean, I know that they're doing this whole the Batman thing with Robert Pattinson, and I saw that trailer, and you know what I thought about that trailer. And I'm just like, how are you excited over that? But we saw what we saw. Every single time Snyder's Batman came on screen, the set was amped up. Amped up the set. Point blank. Even in Suicide Squad when he came up on screen against like Deadshot. And then the one when he was against Joker. So I'm actually a little bit confused about how people's brains operate in the fan space. I'm a little bit confused. So that's to say, and let's just even sort of bring this back to the main topic. When we're really looking at the cinematic landscape, and whether cinema is dead as a means of conveying media and entertainment, I think the question is really going to come down to the quality of the audience, the quality of fandom, how people want to ingest their material. Let me just get I need to get a quick cup of something, guys. Just give me 2 seconds. All right. So you guys just had to, get myself some goodies. All right. So that's what I think it really comes down to, and I think that people need to really be aware of the impact it's going to make on what you watch if the cinema doesn't come back. Because what we're really talking about as well is also the artistry of making films, and the kind of cinematography that people are going to employ when they make films. You see, the thing is, like, and I don't know, look, for people who know about filmmaking and so forth, the best filmmakers are thinking about how the film is going to be ingested. So, for example, you can get a guy like Steven Soderbergh, right, who is known for experimenting with different ways of making movies. Like, that is really his thing, is experimenting and looking at different angles and different perspectives of, can we make a movie with a phone? Can we make a movie with just a cheap camcorder? Can we make a movie that's, done with audio and this and a combination of audio only and, and a cinematic camera? Like, can we make a movie with all that sort of stuff, right? That's what he does. Can I make a movie with a porn star? Can I make a movie with MMA fighter? Can I make a movie with a combination of all three? When you look at all the films that he makes, which is, and I'm using him as an example of this thing I'm talking about, right? When you see the way that he makes films, he's thinking very closely or very carefully about how the film is going to be distributed, how the film is going to be ingested by the audience. So, for example, if he's making a movie and designing the movie to be played on iPhones or iPads, the cinematography isn't going to be like Lord of the Rings, because that there is no way of appreciating that kind of cinematography on a cell phone screen. Like, there's just no way. So similarly, when you look at whether or not this whole thing is going to be, how do I say, it's going to be affected by the move away from cinematic releases? I think so. I think the kinds of movies you're going to see will be different. I think the way that the movies will look will be different. I think you're going to see a lot of cheap films, which in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have cheap movies, you know. I think, you know, having cheaper movies reduces the barrier to entry for the smaller filmmaker, you know. So for example, now if you're able to make $30,000 movies, $20,000 movies that are actually getting proper releases on streaming platforms, automatically that blows the door open for tons of people who would never have had a look in for a major audience with their films, and being able to make them independently financed and put them on. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, obviously it's a double-edged sword, because you're going to get a lot of trash coming through as well, like a lot of garbage, you know, at the same time. But I think it's like really important that you do have a situation where, you know, you give people the opportunity. You give people the opportunity to, how do I put this? You give people an opportunity to have a voice. People who didn't have the opportunity to have a voice previously. Because listen, those barriers to entry, which is just simply the level of money required to make movies at the level that cinema was. And listen, man, which is why I think this is perfect that this has happened. Because you remember when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg said that the blockbuster bubble was going to burst, right? Remember that? And he said that this is unsustainable. They were like, this is an unsustainable system, and sooner or later it's going to collapse, and blah, 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 and so on. And people were like, oh, you know, sour grapes, blah, 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 because you're old and you're fit. Yeah, people were saying all that sort of nonsense. Ironically, I don't think that they anticipated that the reason why what they were saying was going to happen was going to be a pandemic, global quarantine virus running rampant through the globe. Like, I don't think that they thought that that was going to be the reason, but it actually, their prediction is going to come true, or has come true, but not for the reasons they thought. I thought that the reasons they thought was going to play out. I really did think that, you know, we were getting to the point of saturation, and we were getting to the point that people were sick and tired of these massive movies that were essentially theme park rides and didn't have any hearts, didn't have any real, how do you say, like, filmmaking integrity to them. Because obviously, look, when you're making films at that level, you're having to check a lot of boxes. You're trying to bring in as big an audience as you possibly can. And when you're doing that, it's very difficult to have a genuine perspective within the film as you know, artistically. Because, you know, if you have too much of a perspective, you're going to alienate a lot of viewers. And I think that's the reason why I felt that they were right, that over time, this bubble was going to burst. Now, moving on to where we are now. The big blockbuster can't, it's not worth spending that kind of money anymore, because you're not going to make that kind of money back, because you can't bamboozle the people into giving you that, you know, 300 million or 350 million in the first weekend, you know, that you release something on streaming. It's like you're not, because too many people don't have to pay that money. Like, is it, when it was a theatrical thing, it's like, just so you could see it that opening weekend, even if you just wanted to see that opening weekend, regardless of what the reviews were saying, regardless of everything, you had to just buy a ticket, you know. Because if you wanted to see a bootleg, for example, you'd have to wait for it to be available, then find a torrent, and then a torrent that's actually stable, that has a decent copy and doesn't have other people in the movie that weren't supposed to be in the movie, that weren't cast in the movie, like just some dudes. Now you don't have to do that because it's on street. It's like you just go to your friend's house, you know. So that is dramatically going to cut down the amount of money that can be made. And listen, this effect, I think, is actually a really great thing for movies. Because now you've just got to make good movies now. And you've got to be more discerning. And it's also going to open up the slate for more filmmakers. So we're almost going to regress back to where we were at in the hopefully another 70s golden era. But I think the golden era now is not going to be Hollywood. It's going to be really the independent filmmaker, the independents who are going to be able to take advantage of obviously the new technology we have available in terms of cameras, in terms of streaming, in terms of self-promotion. And that's actually a very important factor, is self-promotion. Like the fact that the kind of promotion you can do now for free through social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that would have cost you millions of dollars in the past is insane. So when you have a person who has a following of like 1 million followers or something, genuine followers, not the people who just buy followers, but people have like 1 million followers or something like that, the amount of leverage you can get out of that for your own content is insane, because all you need is 10% of your million people, which is 100,000. You just need 100,000 of those people to buy it to whatever it is you're making. 100,000. If you can get that, 100,000, and you're charging, like, let's say you're saying that, every copy of your thing, you're going to make a project and it's like $9.99, $10 each. That's $1 million right there that you just made. So that's all you really need. I mean, what I'm saying is, like, for the average person, that's all you really need. It's like, do you need more than that? Not really. Not really. If you're just an average filmmaker. So for the filmmakers who are just operating on a basic level, rolling, whereas in the old world would never have had an opportunity to get any leverage to move forward in any way, to get a foothold in the business. Now the doors have been blown open. I mean, now you have all the opportunity in the world to get in the game. You have all the opportunity in the world to tell your stories the way you want to tell them. Because now the technology is there for everything. I mean, listen, what an iPhone 12 Pro Max or 11 Pro Max or whatever can do at 24 frames, it can shoot 24 frames per second HD. That is something that you couldn't do with a camera 20 years ago. Like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, forget 20 years ago, 10 years ago, you couldn't even do that. Like you had to get a Red or a Ari Alexa or something like that to be able to do what an iPhone can do today. Now, anybody can get an iPhone now. And even if you wanted to buy it outright, what is it, $1,000 or something? $1,500, $1,400. That feature in itself, the fact that you have a 24 frames per second capable HD camera, 4K, it has 4K as well in higher frame rates. But at 24 frames per second, you're doing HD. So if you've got an idea and you want to make a film, you've got like okay, it's difficult to even say studio quality, because what does that even mean when you say studio quality? But you have a camera capable of shooting out film that people can watch on their big screens. And you have that camera in your pocket, guys. It's what you use to make your phone calls. That's what you have. So I think it's very important now that we're aware of the shift that's being made. We're aware of, oh, hi, Rusty. Ben Affleck was saying recently if he made The Town or even Argo today, it would have gone to Netflix. I agree. I mean, I think, listen, I think people are underestimating the impact that this is going to have on just on everything, on cinema in general, because so there's a lot of films that simply now will not go theatrical. Like films like that, there is no point. There is absolutely no point in going theatrical because you will not make any money. You'll make peanuts. You'll make a couple of $100,000. The only films now that can go theatrical are films that either you have a very, very specific audience. So, for example, if you have a niche genre, so if you have, like, for example, black films, if you have a black film and it's like a religious movie and whatever, and you have a very specific audience, who you can get out to a couple of screens. So you have a couple of screens in particular cities or whatever, you market it right. Those sort of films can make a few million. But what I'm saying is, like, those films would always have made some millions with or without the quarantine because they have very niche, specific audiences and you're giving them what they want. And that is what I feel is one of the best impacts of what is happening now, is that the studios have, like, you can't just get away with trash anymore. You can't. Like, that whole thing where you just do the money grab and you make a movie and just say, look, just dump it in the cinema on opening weekend. We're going to rake in the cash because we did the marketing campaign, which cost us like $20 million to do the marketing campaign. We're going to make 80, 100 million on the opening weekend. Everybody's going to realize the movie's garbage. Then we'll just throw it onto digital, make some more money, and then we'll be good. That's crazy. You're not going to be able to do that now. You're not going to be able to do that now. It's game over. So for that reason, I think it's very important that we are aware of the impact this is going to make on us as fans. Because like I said in the beginning of this show today, I'm a cinema guy. So I'll be back as soon as cinema's back. To the point that, listen, I'm so into the cinema that, saying, are you risking your life going? I mean, I would actually take some risks to go and watch particular pictures in the movies, in the cinema. When I say some risks, I mean calculated risks. But I'm not going to, even if I'm weighing up that there's COVID out there and I'm like, you know what, man, let me wear my mask, let me get my sanitizer, I'm going to get out there, go and watch the movie. Depending on what movie that is. So I'm definitely somebody who, I'm in that demographic that they don't have to work very hard. They don't have to work very hard to get me back in. I mean, it's going to be quite straightforward for me. But, and I'll say this, they're not going to get a lot of people back. They're not. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the Wonder Woman 1984 HBO Max announcement, because that's definitely connected to this. I didn't want to put that into this show. I wanted to just dedicate a show specifically to that because I think that is a very big deal because of how big a release it is and what they're now doing with it. I think that's a big signifier for things to come. I would also say that, and this is also a very important point as well, is that, like we have AMC that's done a deal with Universal, which is a 17-day window. So what happens is that a Universal movie comes out, it gets 17 days exclusively in the cinema. And then after 17 days, Universal are allowed to then put it on their streaming platforms or put it on streaming platforms and so forth. That hasn't been working out very well, if you're looking at the numbers with the films that have been coming out under that agreement, and it's just simply because people just don't want to go to the cinema anymore, Rusty, as you're in there, like, what do you, also timing wise, of the show, and you can post this in the comments, what time zone are you guys in? And is this too early or too late? Well, actually, it can't be too late for anybody. Is this too early a time for these broadcasts to be going out? Because I think I'm going to be sticking to this time for the hour live shows for the coming future. And I want to know if this time works for people. So just let me know. So what's Rusty? What are you saying here? The talented Mr. Ripley would never make it. It would be a BBC or Netflix series. I think the Luther guys wanted to reboot it. And John Campier says Black Widow might get announced for Disney Plus at their next investor meeting. That's probably true. That's probably true. And talented Mr. Ripley, yeah, would never be in the cinema. Never, 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 never been. Like, it's actually obvious. Like, you can actually look at all the great movies that you've watched in the theater, where when the theater was even booming, you'd go and say, man, this film was such a great movie. It's obviously an Oscar bait movie, but, you know, why would you even, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would you even put this in the theater? So, Rusty, you're saying that you're in Central, so it's 8:36. So I started, so it's 8 a.m. It's 8 a.m. for you when the show goes live. So you listen to some other shows starting around 10 a.m. Okay, yeah, so 10 a.m. will be too late for me. I mean, I'm not going to start this show at 10 a.m. I mean, this is perfect for me, you know, because I can start my day out with freeing a couple of minds on Talkback and then get on my day, you know. So I think this is going to work for me, but I know that for some people, this might be, depending on where you are, it might be difficult. But I do want to set a time that is, at least for the hardcore Talkback people, they can actually get over here, you know. Get over here. They can get over here and be able to take parts, you know. I mean, evenings are difficult for me. Very, very difficult for me, because once the day gets going, my day really gets a bit crazy. So I really have to sort of get this done, you know, earlier in the day in order to have any shot of making things happen. That being said, back to the topic. So, yeah, so tomorrow is going to be Wonder Woman 1984. We're going to talk about that and, you know, what that means for everything that we're dealing with. I would say, this, guys. It's a renaissance. It's going to be a renaissance. Like, we're going to see some very, very interesting things happening, because there are going to be filmmakers who would have never got a look in, who are going to get looks in now, because people need content. They need content, man. Because now it's like every studio needs to have a streaming platform that's robust. That is robust. And for that reason now, they cannot do the same old things that they used to do, where it's a closed shop, it's a barrier. We have our guys who give us the movies that we play. All that sort of nonsense. Like, listen, guys, do you want content or not? Because you need content. So you better be opening your doors to a lot of different voices and a lot of different filmmakers if you want to keep up with the Joneses, if you want to be able to compete. So that whole idea of like closing the shop to, you know, white directors, the way white directors are making 99% of what you're making, is a waste of your time, because you're not going to be able to capture the kind of audience that you need if you're not appealing to the widest breadth, widest band of people out there. So you now have to open the door to blacks, Latinos, Asians, whatever. As far as voices, I'm not talking about just the audience members, because the audiences now are so savvy about authenticity that you now have to open the doors to those voices so they can speak authentically about their experiences, speak authentically about their perspectives, and put the movies out that wouldn't have been coming out before. Put the movies out. And we know when that happens, which is inevitable, things are going to change in society. Because the reason why we're in the scenario that we're in now is because there has only been one perspective in mainstream. So everybody has had to speak through the white lens. Whether you're black, green, blue, you are always speaking through the same lens. Like, you are always going through that perspective. That's the reason why things are the way they are. Because that is just one perspective, regardless of how well-intentioned you might be. So, for example, it's like, I will never be able to make a movie about the female experience the way a woman who has skills would make a movie about the female experience. Because I'm not a woman. So it's like, it doesn't matter how sensitive I am. It doesn't matter how, talented I may or may not be. There is no way I can achieve the level of detail and authenticity about the female experience that a woman would be able to achieve if she knows what she's doing, if she has the skill set. That's the key, though, because this isn't just about nepotism and pandering. It's like, look, you're not just going to just give opportunities to people who have no skills. You're going to give it to people who have a skill set. You're going to give it to people who know what the hell they're doing. But you've got to give it to people who know what the hell they're doing and genuinely represent the community that they're talking about and are being allowed to tell the story the way they want to tell it and not the way you want it told. They need to make more movies on a Blumhouse model. I don't know what kind of back-end deals the actors get, but they have had a great success on very low budgets. I agree with that, Rusty. Rusty, do you have a mic? You want to get in on this? I can bring you in. I can send you the link for the last 15. What do we have? We have like 17 minutes left of the show. Let me bring you in here. I'm going to send you the link. How do you do a private chat? Private with your guests. Rusty, tell me if you see that link. I just sent you a link. Tell me if you see that. I don't know how to send messages just directly to people. So just tell me if you see. Oh, you're working. Okay. Okay, cool. No problem. All right, man. Anyway, so this is good, though. I mean, I like this because, when we do the show this way, I guess people can listen even if they're at work. You can put. So how are you listening to this? Are you just listening to it on your headphones? Like, what are you doing? How are you listening to this thing? I think that the Blumhouse model is really good. I mean, I think that is the way. This is the way. That is the way. You know what's so crazy, guys? You know when you've watched too many films? I can't have a conversation now without clicking into lines from movies. I can't have a conversation without clicking into lines from movies. I'll say something and like it clicks into a particular film. Anyway, I do agree, and I think that is where we're headed. But I think one of the biggest sort of overlooked factors of the film industry and the robustness of the film industry is marketing and promotion. And the fact that you do have a situation now where, you see, you could make a great movie before, but the barrier was distribution and promotion. That was what killed artists in the past, up till like now, up till what we're now seeing with the whole change. Because of what social media is doing and because everybody's now moving to streaming, the landscape is being evened out to the point where I believe in the next 3 to 4, 5 years maximum, there will be independent studios. Like I'm talking about truly independent studios, where it's just some dude who is dealing with every level of his content because he doesn't need anybody. Tony Montana style. That's where we're going. Because we're getting to the point where technology is so robust that we can have an engine where somebody's doing all the work, man. It's doing everything. Production. Distribution. Production, marketing, and distribution. By the same dude or dudettes. Got to be politically correct here. That's where we're going, guys. And when that happens, forget about the studios. Who cares about the studios at that point? We're just going to have dudes. We're going to have guys. Whereby the way that the guy is operating is based on quality. What did I say, guys? Quality. 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 Because the only reason why he's going to be getting followed, subscribed to, patronized with hard-earned dinero, dough, is because he's producing quality. Not the way things are now, whereby you have to just deal with the only kids in town, the only people on the block, aka like the two-party system. We're like, we've got the Democrats and the Republicans. That's what you got, man. So you just got to pick between them. I don't want to go into politics, but I'm just like giving you an example of what the studio system has been. It's like, for the fans, this is all to Talkback people, you just take what you're given. It's like you haven't got a choice. Now imagine a world where it's a smorgasbord. It's like it's just everything. Like you can really just go and specifically support the individual dude or dudette who is producing the exact kind of material that you like. Can you imagine that world? Everybody's getting taken care of then. And those people will be getting held accountable because they know their life force, their sustenance, their business, their future depends on producing quality material for the audience that they service. That's the future, guys. The game is up for the machine. It's up. Shh, quietly. We don't want to let people know about this, but the game is up. Game's up. Shh. Don't want to let people know about that. Game's up. So I think the future is bright. The future is orange. The future is bright for all of us as fans. It's going to be bumpy though. I mean, listen, I don't think this is going to happen overnight. I really don't. Like, I think we're going to go through a very, very rocky period of a lot of trash. You know, I mean, like, as people try and like figure out the whole situation, we're going to go through a lot of crap. You know, and I think once we balance things out, once we sort of figure out where we are, what we're doing, I think then we will really be in a situation to truly, how do I say, like to truly address a lot of things and to truly bring fandom back. Because, you know, look, it is a madhouse now. It is the Wild West. And, you know, we're talking about this on the last show when we're talking about the evolution of Talkback. We're talking about the fact that, you know, look, to a degree, fandom became so toxic because everybody was just, all you're doing is complaining, like attacking things, talking about how crap this is, how crap that is, you know, and like you just go on there and like there is no joy or happiness. And you're thinking that, wait a minute, isn't the whole point about being a fan or being in fandom like about joy and happiness and all the joy and happiness that you derive from this material? Why is it therefore that we're all just whining and complaining about everything? The reason why is that there is reason to complain. You see what I'm saying? Like, you can't actually blame a lot of this stuff, because you're like, well, when you actually listen to the arguments, you're like, well, you know what, these guys actually have a reason. Like, there's a very valid reason for complaints, which is what Talkback was doing as well. But I think we need to now take control. We need to take control. We need to take ourselves as fans more seriously, have some more self-respect, and push things in the direction we want to push them in, and stop asking and begging. Start doing. Start putting your money where your mouth is. Start putting your support where it should be put. And I think it's not yet time for that, but we're getting to that point very quickly where fans will actually really know who to put their support behind as actual truly independent maverick producers who are just making things. You know, we're going to see that. That's the future. So the fate of cinema is complicated. I think that's the answer to this. Is it over for the big screen? No. But I think the big screen will now be serving a very, very different purpose. I think a lot of them are going to close down. Tons of them will close down. And the cinema will now be an experience thing. It won't be the bread and butter of how people make money anymore. Because even for the studios, they've got to be sensible and say, listen, this could happen again. We could have another situation like this. We can't rely on something that can literally be taken away from us in 2 seconds for a year or more. Because this is going to be, like, cinema isn't going to come back till probably next summer in any meaningful sort of way. So a year and a half, you know? So I think the studios now and everybody is like, you know, even if they could go back meaningfully to this, I mean, like putting their efforts behind cinema, I don't think that it's wise to do that and put all your eggs in that basket. I don't think it's wise. You know? So I would actually say this, guys. The time as fans to take responsibility for all the things we've been talking about is fast approaching. The time as fans to put the energy behind the things that you believe in is fast approaching. Yeah, no, I know about that, Rusty. Yeah, I mean, the renting out of the screens, that's been happening. Yeah, I know that for sure. I mean, you know, even the place like I talked about earlier in the show, when I went to watch Tenet, you know, in the cinema, they did do that. They did have, hold on a second, let me blow my nose. They did have a facility for people renting out the theater and using it for, I mean, people were apparently they were using it for private events, movie nights, you know, football games, gaming, all that sort of stuff, which is actually a good idea. I mean, you know, when you do that, you can actually make a decent amount of money if you charge a reasonable amount. You can almost, you're never going to make as much as you'd be making if you were selling out the theater to watch, you know, to blockbuster movies, but you're going to make at least enough money to keep your doors open, you know. You know, if every time that, you know, you rent out the theater to a private group is like 1,000, couple of grand, you're going to keep the doors open, you know. Because I mean, look, let me be real. Like if I had a group of people, a proper movie, oh man, you know, that's something I'd do, you know, for movie nights. By the way, guys, what we're going to be doing as well, like I told you that there's going to be a Talkback Classic release every week. What I'm going to do is that the Talkback Classic movie nights we'll have a movie night on Talkback because Facebook allows you to do group movie watching, so you can actually watch movies as a group on there. So I'm going to see what the best way of accessing some of these films are, and then we're going to do for the Talkback Classics, like some of the classics, maybe not all of them, but we'll do a watch whereby Talkback people can actually go and watch the movie that we're doing the classic of the week on, because the show on Sunday, and this is what we're going to transition into later, like these morning shows are for now. In the end, you know, once we build up enough of a platform, that is what we're going to be sort of focusing on, are the Talkback Classic videos, the Sunday live show, and then we'll do like a watch of the classic film. Or we might even do that in conjunction. We might actually do the watch on the Sunday afternoon, and then afterwards we'll do the live show talking about the movie. You know, we might do that. So that's sort of in the pipeline of plans for what we'll be doing. But for now, 9 a.m. Central Time is Talkback live, like you're seeing here. This radio show is going to be weekdays at 9 a.m. And I'll be putting out the alerts on the page. And as I said, even though I'm still using the Talkback YouTube, this will be going away, you know, I'm not sure what point I'm going to like kill it completely, but there is going to be a point that it won't be there. So if you're listening to this on Talkback page, make sure that you subscribe to is Curator Network now. So you have to Google, search on YouTube Curator Network. So if you search that, you will find the page that, everything is going to be linked to going forward. Yeah, guys. So, that's where we're at. And tomorrow, like I said, is going to be the Wonder Woman 1984 HBO Max situation that we're going to be discussing. Crazy times. Crazy times. This is, I think for most people who are alive today, it's probably the wildest experience that they've ever had. It is like World War III. It's like World War III. It's the first thing since World War II that the entire world has been involved in at the same time. Since World War II, like World War II was the last time that the whole world was like, you know what, man, there is a war on. Like there's something on that is affecting every country. This coronavirus COVID thing is the first time that we've ever had that. I mean, we've had that since then. So in our lifetime, so for people like us, when we were thinking about what World War III would be, this is World War III. It's so weird and crazy. And the wild thing about it is that it's not over. We don't know when it's going to be over. It's very complicated because nobody knows what the truth is. Nobody knows what the real deal is about this thing. Because there are so many agendas at play. People are worried that can we believe the media, what they're saying? People are saying, can we believe the politicians, what they're saying? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, ooh, whatever, so forth. That's where we're at. Yeah, ooh. So, it's crazy. But as fans, and as people who are in the fandom and watching this media and entertainment, this is, I don't like to say distraction because I feel like distraction is dangerous as when there's something this serious on the table. I think having an active distraction where it's like, we don't have to think about what's going on while I don't think that's a very healthy thing to have. I don't think that's a very healthy thing to have. I think it's important for you to address an issue when you see it. I think it's very important for you to address situations when you have them. So I think that the COVID thing is a big deal. Whether it's real or not, whether it's being manipulated or not, is by the by, because we know it's a real condition and we know that there is the possibility that this condition is being manipulated. But for that reason, I think it's important for people to be on their ones and twos and to know what the hell is going on. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's show. We'll be back again at 9 a.m. Central Time. I think it's Central Time. No, I think it's 9 a.m. Eastern. Sorry, guys. My mistake. It's 9 a.m. Eastern Time. So we'll be back at 9 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow and every weekday. Tomorrow is going to be Wonder Woman 1984 HBO Max, and whatever else might happen to come up as well. But stay true. Out of here, guys. Thank you. The Merc signing